Jim, the autumn continues to be exceedingly dry.
Yes, in this last fortnight, Rob, it's got really dry again in that first 100 millimetres or so in the soil. So all of a sudden we can't do a hell of a lot with herbicides. We can with knockdown, but I would prefer that the growers now wait till at least the first or second week of June before they apply
Another month's time,
before they apply those sort of materials, because this just has not been cold enough. So trees, apple trees, vines, bushes are still too soft in their wood, and they'll take up those materials, which we don't want them to do. So we need the frost to come along, some moisture to come along, and then we can go out and do our herbicide spraying.
I mean, we're duck shooting already.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I was fly fishing last weekend, 21 degrees. Fantastic, actually.
Unless you happen to be a farmer.
Well, that's right, and it's getting quite serious.
No, it is actually. We shouldn't make light of it.
Talking to a number of arable growers that obviously grow black currants and other crops like that, they're going back out to keep their pasture, the new pasture underway, in their fodder crops, just to give them a bit of a perk along with irrigation. I mean, irrigating in the middle of May, it's just crazy. So it's something it is quite serious for those North Canterbury farmers and some of the Wairarapa guys. And if we do continue on, as the media are telling us now, that this could continue on for at least another month, it could become extremely serious. Dairy prices will be just one of the minor things we've got to worry about.
Exactly. However, on the other side of the coin, of course, you've got a good vind.
Yes, it is a very good vintage at the moment. The grapes are coming in very good condition. Of course, the harvesting conditions are ideal. So when you look at a harvest that's got a bit of moisture thrown in at it, you get what they call slip skin, and botrytis comes into some of the varieties. But none of that's happening this time. They're coming in sound condition. Acids are a little bit variable, but the skins are in good order, so therefore the pH and the bricks are very, very, very well balanced. So I would think out of the 2016 vintage we should have some nice wines coming through.
Well, that sounds very promising.
And there's a big, we've had areas across New Zealand that have been affected by the frost, but there's still a big crop out there.
Is there going to be enough stainless steel?
Yes, there will be. Yes, there will be enough stainless steel.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And that leads us on, I suppose, into pruning, because that's looming for the grapes, but the other people are already into it.
Well, it's right, and of course, with the conditions being as they are, it's actually ideal for pruning. The autumn leaves are taking a little bit longer to come off, but the wood is dry when they cut it, so there's no moisture, no chance of disease going into those little branches and cuts where they're made. So it's actually an ideal time to get stuck into your pruning, because at some stage it's going to turn around and it's going to be nasty for us for a couple of months. And of course, ground conditions change, and people don't like going out, or shouldn't go out and prune in the rain. Sometimes it gets so bad that they have to go out and prune and at least drizzle. So
why don't you prune in the rain?
Oh, because you'll get diseases in the cuts. They have to seal off and dry. Now today, if you went out there today in 20 degrees odd and made a cutting, but in 10 minutes time that's sealed off enough not to draw in any diseases that may be around in the atmosphere. So it's ideal conditions for pruning.
But obviously, if that's the case, you stop at about 4 o'clock before the dew starts.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what they do anyway. They'll start earliest in the morning and then they'll stop. But look, at the end of the day, if there's moisture that night and the conditions and the temperatures are cool, the drying is much slower. So at the moment, it's quite rapid. And guys are getting stuck into their pruning, which is really good. But this will change.
It will change.
we get 650 millimetres of rain in the Greater Canterbury area on an annual basis. We are going to get it in lumps, like we did at the third week of January, where we had 180 millimetres of rain, almost a third of our rainfall. We've had very little since.
That's why we have irrigation, Jim.
Yeah, it is. But that's actually stimulated, funny enough, some of the harder to kill weeds like mallow, and especially deadly nightshade. There's a lot of nightshade out there, and that's the rain in January that's kick-started that. And of course, it's a pretty old hardy weed. We will get rid of it with the herbicides, all right, but there's a lot of it out there, a lot more than we'd normally see in any one year, and because it grows in dry conditions.
And that brings us back to what you were saying earlier about you've only got knockdown at the moment.
Yeah. So what we need to do is just put the brakes on the herbicide program, wait for another month, a good month, and then go in, and hopefully we've got some nice frost coming along. The frost actually draw the herbicide into the weeds because they're trying to survive, naturally trying to survive. They suck in every moisture they can. Unfortunately, with that moisture happens to be herbicide, so that's why the kill is much better. Do it now and you'll get a brown off, but they'll start to come back again. so earlier in the spring. So we want to delay it as much as we can, and then we won't have that come back in the spring, which will be really good.
Now, base nutrient plans.
Yeah, the baseline nutrient management plans are required by growers and farmers throughout New Zealand to back up their ideas and get a plan for their specific activity on their farms. So what it's all about is about the nitrates leaching. How much can be leached off that farm? Now, if there's a certain type of grower, he may only have a baseline of about 20 kilograms per hectare. But if it's a higher use nitrogen using farm, they've got to reduce that, but that may not necessarily be a baseline of 20, it may be a baseline of 30. But in their whole activity, especially when you've got mixed arable farming, cropping farms, you've got activities that only have nitrogen leaching of, say, 9 kilograms, and some may be 25. So what they're trying to do now is to make sure that that's on the higher end, so 20, 22, so the farmer can continue his activities, but be much more careful and diligent in his nitrogen leakage. So these plans are now being made up. Unfortunately, they're being made up by regions and councils, so not everyone's really playing off the same page. Having said that, there are some reasons for that, and that is there are different irrigation schemes. So what comes into here is not only nutrient, but actually water. So if you've got to bring all of those topography sort of conditions into play within this plan to actually in the end get a balanced program for that grower going forward. What they originally said they were going to do was just let's have a look at what you've used and distributed as nitrates for the last 3 years. Well, that's totally unfair because there are so many variables across crops. If you take a black currant or a strawberry or a raspberry, they only use about 9 kilograms of nitrogen leaching, where dairy cows 60. So how can that same farmer have his strawberries and black currants and dairy cows in balance? So they've got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and done a bit more homework. And in the end, it's going to be far, far better for our environment, irrespective of what some political parties may say. And the other thing that's part of this plan is the mapping and the development fencing, keeping stock away from waterways and all that sort of thing. There's some really good things going on out there and a hell of a lot of money being spent when the farmers don't actually get the credit for it that they should.
Because they are doing it.
They are certainly doing it. Of course they're doing it. And the ECANs of this world are making sure they're monitoring them, and that's good. So the outcome is going to be slow, Rob. I mean, Lake Ellesmere is not going to clear up in 1 year. It's going to clear up in 30 years. We've just spent 150 years buggering it. So you don't expect it to turn around and be nice and pristine in 10 years' time. But it's on the way back, and that's very, very important.
That is very important
going forward. Yeah.
Jim, thank you very much indeed.